Welcome to our November Questions for the Rector. I'm Stephen Heiner, and with us, as always, is the Rector of Most Holy Trinity Seminary here in Reading, Pennsylvania, His Excellency Bishop Donald Sanborn. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Hello, Stephen.
So we have, as usual, a lot to catch up with Leo. He doesn't really give us any rest, but while people are coming into the stream, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel, and let us know in the chat where you are watching or listening from tonight. Just wanted to read a message that came in earlier in the month, Your Excellency, from someone in Australia. I want to send a thank you note for MHT's support in Australia, which we are all grateful for. In October and November of this year, we not only had 2 priests offering Mass and the October devotions in a chapel now owned by the organization, we even had an All Saints' Day party for the children. I have to say, it looked like my children had the best day of their lives. At the event, there was a small stage where Father Eldracker was the MC, and children came up to demonstrate the saint they were dressed up as. At one point, when both Fathers Palma and Eldracker were on the stage, my 4-year-old son blurted out with joy, "There's 2 fathers!" Seeing 2 non-compromising traditional Catholic priests under the same roof in Australia is something that I, as a child, would not have even imagined. It's crazy to think that about 8 to 10 years ago, we were lucky to get Mass once a month. Now we have Mass available practically daily, 2 priests, a chapel that is owned, and more spiritual benefits keep coming. This is only possible because of the Institute's support and the highly dedicated clergy of the seminary. Another thing we are very grateful for is the non-compromising theological positions held by priests of the Institute. We never have to worry about the priest potentially saying something dubious or harmful from the pulpit. I personally think this is the result of the extremely high standard of formation that the seminarians go through at MHT, and I get as a layperson who has been fortunate enough to attend the chapel here in Melbourne. Thank you again to the seminary, all the clerics that make the Australian mission possible, and a special thank you to Fathers Palma and Eldracker, who constantly work tirelessly for souls on this side of the world.
It's a very nice letter. Yes.
So, one might say your hard work is paying off, Your Excellency.
Yes. Yes.
So in the super chats, we have £10 from Jimmy Hunjan. Thank you, Jimmy. I recently read that Cardinal Mary Del Val's cause for canonization was opened by Pius XII. Does His Excellency think there are good grounds for considering him to be a saint?
He always had a reputation of piety and great piety when he was a cardinal and older in his life. And Pius X called him a saint when he was alive. Now, that's not a canonization, but I think that's a good indication. I don't think Pius X was quick with compliments, let's put it that way. And so I think there's a strong, he'll never get canonized in the present situation, because he was the very much anti-modernist and no, he would he was actually the one that was supposed to be elected from what we call the Pius X party in 1914, and again in 1922, where he almost achieved it. You see, but that was when I say the Pius X party, that means among those cardinals who thought that the programs, anti-modernist programs of Pius X were correct. See, and if that had gone well in 1922, we probably would not have seen Vatican II. But it didn't.
Cardinal Mary Del Val papacy would have been a wonderful thing, especially being an understudy and a great collaborator of St. Pius X.
Yes.
A lot of wonderful conversations between those two. Andrew McFarlane, $100. Thank you, Andrew. Please speak on corporal and spiritual works of mercy and the Epistle of St. James, in contrast with the Lutheran notion of salvation through faith alone.
Well, yes, the corporal and spiritual works of mercy are compiled in Catholic catechisms as things that are opportune to do, and the spiritual is considered higher than the corporal, because the goal is higher. To save someone's soul is better than to save his body. So yes, what was the second part of the question?
Just the idea of corporal and spiritual works as opposed to this salvation through faith alone.
Well, faith alone. Well, to give you an example, there's nothing in St. Paul that says faith alone. Luther had to add the word alone, and he admitted it. This is not an accusation from Catholicism. He admitted that he added alone after one of the references to faith in St. Paul's epistles. I think it's Romans. And it's because it isn't in sacred scripture. Yes, faith is necessary. You cannot have charity without faith. Charity means love of God. You cannot have hope without faith. It's the basis of everything in the spiritual life. But again, what do you mean by faith? Faith for Protestants and Lutheran Protestants in general is this confidence that God has saved you. But it is not required for salvation to do good works or to avoid the commandments. In other words, avoid sinning against the commandments. In other words, that those things are not held against you. Luther said, God knows we can't obey the commandments. He doesn't expect us to. So it's just this interior faith. And faith for the Protestant is this trust in God. You see, faith for the Catholic is the assent of the intellect to the truths that are revealed by God and proposed for belief by the Catholic Church. Two entirely different things. So there's just no scriptural or basis for the Protestant position, and there's no basis for it in the Fathers. I mean, it comes from nowhere. It comes from Martin Luther's head, because he was so upset that he could not stay out of mortal sin that he said, and that's when he had his enlightenment about faith alone. That was in the toilet because he was suffering from constipation. And this, again, is not something that we're making up. It's in his biography.
He writes about it, yeah.
Yes, I mean, this is something he himself said.
Perhaps implied in the question, Your Excellency, is should we as Catholics be seeking out to do specific spiritual and corporal works of mercy?
Oh, absolutely. They're very meritorious. Yes. I mean, that's the way you go to heaven, by doing those things. I have been instructing the ignorant, which is one of the spiritual works of mercy, for probably 50 years now. So,
and we're doing it here on this stream, Your Excellency,
yes,
as well.
So I'm constantly instructing the ignorant.
Well, thank you for that, Your Excellency. We have ABF for $14. Thank you, ABF. I think Canadian 14. I was hoping you could share some thoughts on our Lord being subsistent truth itself, and how this harmonizes with the philosophical idea of the problem of universals.
Well, our Lord as God is subsistent truth. You see, so God doesn't have any... he is all of his faculties. You see, we have an intellect which is known as a faculty which knows truth. God is his intellect, and God is his truth. In other words, he is subsistent truth. He is subsistent love. All of anything in us which comes from our will or our intellect or any faculty we have is subsistent in him. See, so as God, that he is subsistent truth. And so he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And what was the second part of the question?
How does this harmonize with the idea of the problem of universals?
It doesn't. The universals, I mean, the sense that it doesn't apply to God because he doesn't think in universals. You see, we do because of the defect of our intellect. That is, we are the Model T of the intellectual world, you might say. You have God and angels. We are the lowest form of intellectual life. So we see many rabbits, and we get a universal idea of rabbit, you see. So then we can apply it. Oh, there's another rabbit in the field, and you see. That's how we think. We have this whole collection of universals in our mind. And so, we see an animal we don't know, and we say, well, it looks like a dog. You see, we start with our universals. God does not think that way at all, and angels do not think that way, you see. But we do because, as I said, we're at the low end of intellectual activity.
I was going to say a Model T might be maybe even more than we deserve.
I'd say horse and buggy is more like it. Yeah.
Amoebas crawling
around. We're at the bottom.
The same person was asking, how does this relate to the last gospel? These two ideas, Your Excellency: subsistent truth, universals. I suppose the
Well,
idea of the
what in the last gospel? And
the word coming into the world. I think perhaps that's what I can't speak for the person asking the question. I'm just trying to follow where that might be going.
yes, I am trying the word that may that again refers to the divinity of Christ, and that he proceeds from the Father as the Father knows his own divinity, because everything in God is substantial. You see, in us, when we know something, it's an accident. That means it's not part of our substance. If we know what a rabbit is, for example, that's not part of our substance. But when God doesn't have any of that problem, when he, as his own thought, generates a person. You see, so that's the word. That's the and that's why he is the image of the Father. You see, because he is and I'm talking in very human terms here, the Father thinking and you might say reflecting upon himself. All right, so that's the word, and so the Word was made flesh. You see, so that means the second person of the Blessed Trinity it was made flesh, and dwelt amongst us. So that's what that means. That's yes.
We have Elihu Romberg, $20. Thank you, Elihu. If you have a question, please let us know in the chat so I can ask His Excellency. Matthew Joseph, $10. Thank you, Matthew. Suppose a priest were a diabetic and had low blood sugar during the Mass or canon. Can he pause to treat with juice, etc.? I'm supposing maybe sugar, some sort of treatment.
He could take a medicine. Medicine does not break the fast, but whether he could take sugar or some juice, no.
Something intravenous would still be considered food, Your Excellency, potentially, not just a medicine.
That's a borderline thing, and it's I would have to check the sources on that one.
It's a very speculative question, Matthew. Obviously, hopefully, the priest in question would know this about himself and figure out his rhythms to not put himself into the situation.
Yes.
You haven't had any of your priests had to deal with this issue.
I've never heard of that issue, no.
Fair to remember, $20. Thank you for all your time, Your Excellency. Fair, if you have a question, please make sure to put it in the chat and we can ask His Excellency. Tonight, Your Excellency, we have people in Lisbon, Oregon, St. Mary's, Kansas, England, Peabody, Massachusetts, Huntington Beach, California, County Mayo, Ireland, Greenfield, Wisconsin, Lethbridge, Alberta, Louisville, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, Mequon, Wisconsin, Seattle, Darwin, Australia, Clarence, New York, Rockford, Illinois. Someone had said that they refused to travel to a place named Darwin on principle. Rockford, Illinois, Brooksville, Florida, High Spire, Pennsylvania, Croatia, Tukwila, Washington. And if people are having issues with the audio, please just make sure to refresh the page. That might help. And the big island of Hawaii, Your Excellency, and London.
All right. London, England?
Yes.
There's a lot of London.
Yes, this was London, England.
All right.
Is it just as beneficial to the holy souls to be sitting in your car in a cemetery saying the rosary as it is to walk around the cemetery saying it? I'm uncertain. Please assist, Your Excellency.
I don't think anybody has declared on that. I mean, I never saw the church say anything about that. It would seem to me that your presence in the cemetery would qualify for the indulgence. It would seem to me, but again, I would have to look that up.
To be physically in the cemetery as opposed to being parked in your car in the cemetery parking lot.
Yeah, you're morally there at least. I think you're even physically there. I would say so.
Okay.
I don't think.
Has Bishop Sanborn ever talked about Father Coughlin? I would like to hear his thoughts. He seemed at times to be a paradox. I really don't know how to take him. I think Catholics would benefit from knowing just how in line or out of line with Catholic teaching he was.
Well, he was a big supporter of Roosevelt. And he said a vote for Roosevelt is a vote for Christ. Yes. Father Coughlin. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that,
Yes. And, Roosevelt was a 32nd degree Mason.
among other things.
Yes. And a womanizer. And
So was his wife,
and
I
a
think.
socialist. His wife was a communist. I think he was very naive. He got into all of the social doctrine, being in Detroit, the workers and the unions, and he was very much I wouldn't call him necessarily a socialist, but he was very emphatic about all the social doctrine. In this church that he built, there's a side chapel where there is engraved in the stone, labor needs capital, capital needs labor. Now, can you imagine putting that in a Catholic church? But I mean, this is how strong he was in his feelings. But then when
You've seen this inscription yourself, Your Excellency?
no, I've been told though by eyewitnesses,
Okay.
as I lived for a long time in Detroit. So.
Right.
But then he turned against Roosevelt in the 1930s when Roosevelt, he said, got involved with the bankers. So then he turned on Roosevelt. Then finally, and he was, in any case, he was silenced by Cardinal Spellman at the behest of Roosevelt.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes. And so he got shut down in the late 1930s.
Okay.
And then during the after Vatican II, you would call him conservative, but his whole idea was that it was the bad bishops. It was not the good pope.
Evil entourage.
Yeah, the
if
evil
only the Holy
entourage,
Father knew.
yes. He wrote a book, and how horrible the bishops are and all. So he had a good reaction against Vatican II, but I would say he was kind of mixed up.
I didn't realize that he had been silenced in that way.
Yeah,
I have to confess not knowing too much about.
Well, Spellman and Roosevelt were tight.
Well, I mean, there are plenty. I mean, he wasn't wrong for, you could say, attacking Roosevelt for his bad things. I just didn't know that he had said a vote for Roosevelt was a
Yes,
vote.
that's a famous quote of Father Coughlin.
It's not. It's not. Well, it's unbelievable. So Matthew Arthur, $5 Australian. Thank you, Matthew. See, I've heard it said that a man, when courting a woman, should not go down on his knee to ask the woman for marriage. Is this correct?
There is no ecclesiastical or moral law that says anything about how to do a proposal. So you're free to do whatever you please.
It's a relatively modern custom, Your Excellency. It was not done even 100 years ago.
Well, the church says nothing about it.
I hope that answers your question, Matthew. The American Set of Privationist, $5. Thank you, Corey. What do we need to help Australia produce priests? Send out seminary applications through the mail? God bless the Australia missions.
Pray for vocations. It has to be the grace of God that moves them.
Giselle Demers, 25 Canadian dollars. Thank you, Giselle. Good evening, Your Excellency. Did you have a chance to look over the latest document of Mr. Leo in reference to his rejection of Mary co-redemptorist and co-mediatrix? I think it just mean mediatrix.
No, I didn't actually read it. I just heard about it and heard enough about it that I didn't want to read it. From what I understand, it's the usual, well, we're not denying this. You see, there's always the paragraphs that, we are very Catholic. And then the but comes, and which is their favorite word, is but, B-U-T. And it should not be used because it could be misunderstood, that came up at Vatican II, as a matter of fact, co-redemptrix, and somebody said, we shouldn't, one of the bishops said, we shouldn't use co-redemptrix because the Protestants may not understand it. And Cardinal Spellman said, to his credit, that we're not, the General Council does not teach to, General Council teaches Catholics, it does not teach to those who are outside of the church. And that's about it, because, first of all, you're not going to attract Protestants by dropping that term. You're going to insult our Blessed Lady. Many, many theologians talk about it. It is certainly a title that she has, and it is based in sacred theology. Mediatrix is actually a dogma. So you know that would be like saying, well, we shouldn't say transubstantiation because the Protestants may not understand it.
Difficult to explain.
Yeah, difficult to explain. So no, it's just I think it's the beginning of a dismantling of a Catholic dogma one by one. We saw Filioque go down the drain when he was reciting the Nicene Creed. Now it's these Marian dogmas, and you'll see more. I think as time goes on, the whole LGBTQ agenda that's going on and on and on, and that's, as he said, we have to change the attitudes before we can change the doctrines. See, so this whole idea is to get people sensitized to this new way of thinking, And his agenda is to patch it up with the Orthodox and patch it up with the Protestants, make one big world church, as St. Pius X predicted. And so this is what has to happen. These dogmas have to be torn down. And Mary, of course, the Protestants think that she was just a nice lady,
if they even think that.
If even that, and so that's I think it's a part of that process, and I think you'll see more of that.
Yeah, His Excellency noted when hearing about the homosexual couple greeting that Leo gave that this is what he's doing. He's changing attitudes before he's changing doctrines.
Yes. He just met with a married two men that were married, and he met with somebody else recently, and that those meetings, as one of the people on the internet said, he's not going to meet with people who are white supremacists. In other words, and that was to point out that a meeting, although it's only a meeting, it is a type of approval. So you wouldn't to get into the Vatican in front of the Pope. Who does that? I mean, that's you'd have to be somebody to do that. And it's a form of approval.
So, Giselle, if you can wait till next week, His Excellency actually recorded an episode for Questions for the Rector on co-redemptrix. So you'll hear some papal teachings, you'll hear some opinions from Father Garrigou-Lagrange, and we'll talk about certain theological opinions versus theological opinions. And His Excellency correcting me when I use the term hierarchy of doctrine. Which is heretical.
It's modernist.
Which I found out. Always happy to be corrected. I don't want to be a modernist. Jimmy Hunjin, 100 pounds. Thank you, Jimmy. The SSPX recently put out a communique on Mater Populis Fidelis, stating that they are offering a litany Stabat Mater after Mass this Sunday by way of reparation. Is it mentioning the one responsible for the injury in the canon of the Mass far more insulting to Our Lady?
Yes, I thought of that myself. In other words, that here they are saying that this man is the representative of Christ on earth, and that he has the power of Christ to rule the church. Pius XII said that the power of the Pope and the power of Christ are one and the same authority. So that's what they're saying in the middle of the Mass, yet they are doing this reparation. I mean, where do you start with the reparation? I mean, it's like a junkyard. I mean, in the sense of all of the things that they have done. Where do you start? Why are they picking on this? Why are they sensitive to this? This is just one more piece of modernist junk to be thrown into the pile.
I think they're picking it because it's an easy win for their faithful, Your Excellency. It's red meat. Look at what we're doing. We're resisting.
Yes.
We're resisting the Holy Father. We're not going to let him tell us what to do.
Yes.
Will Matthews, $2. Thank you, Will. What are the rules for indulgences at this time?
Well, there are various rules according to the indulgence, and you have to get a book called the Recolta, but the traditional book, not the new one. There was a revised version. Paul VI did away with a great many indulgences. And there are various conditions and various things that you can't just give a general idea about that.
I think maybe he's pointing toward the person might be asking about the general conditions, prayer for the intentions.
That's all yes, typically those are the general conditions, that you pray for the intentions of the Holy Father, and that you receive the Holy Communion worthily 8 days before or 8 days after the act that you perform, and also that you confess 8 days before or 8 days after the act that you perform. That's the usual conditions, but you'd have to read all of the. It's whatever the Pope decides.
Hope that answers your question. Giergi Castrioti, $10. Thank you, Giergi. Your Excellency, you had mentioned in a past Q&A that Cardinal Bea was a converted Jew. I have not been able to source this. Do you have a source that is your understanding, or did I mishear you?
No, he was.
I think it's well known that he was.
It's well known.
I
Yes,
think, and he said it in some speeches. I think. This
Oh,
is not
it's common knowledge. Yeah, I mean, I just can't. I should. People ask me for these sources. I should keep books here. But no, it's just common knowledge.
right. Hopefully that helps Gergi. But I myself have seen quotes where Cardinal Bea references his own Judaism.
Probably, if you looked them up on Wikipedia, you would find that.
Okay. Yeah. Where else do we have people from? We have Beaufort, South Carolina, Montreal, Melbourne, Australia, Arkansas, Orlando, Florida, the Bronx. Where else? Tucson, Arizona, and London, Ontario, Canada. So we have both Londons watching, Your Excellency. Does grace before meals cure problems with the food? So, for example, Your Excellency, if the food is prepared with seed oils, does it make the seed oils not harmful to your body now?
Wish that it did improve the food. I'm sure everyone would be happy, including the cook. If anything went wrong, it would be cured. No, it merely is giving thanks to God, and that blessing is made in order that the food be used according to all of the laws of God.
So the blessing doesn't make the food taste better or remove GMOs.
Wish that it did.
I have to have breakfast or lunch with Protestants occasionally. Sometimes they want to say their Protestant grace before meals and say something like, "Do you want to pray for a second?" or "Do you mind if we pray for a second?" How should I, as a Catholic, respond? Because I can get caught off guard in these moments.
Well, you could just tell them, say your prayers, and then you can hold the chair or something like that, or just not participate in some sort of graceful way.
So would you respond, say, if they say, "Do you want to pray for a second?" you would say, "No, thank you," something like that?
Well, you wouldn't say that. I mean, you could say your own grace to yourself, but you wouldn't want to pray with them. But you could just say, I will. Why don't you say your own prayers and I'll wait for you, or something like that. So whatever you want to do, but you could say your own. Grace is not. You're not required to say grace.
But we should not give the impression of praying with Protestants.
No, you shouldn't pray with Protestants. No.
So His Excellency is offering a graceful exit for the grace problem. I hope that.
But you could say your own prayer privately. Okay. You could. That wouldn't.
Joseph Barden for $50. Thank you, Joseph. Can you please name the devotional book His Excellency has previously recommended for Mass? And is it available on True Restoration? Joseph, you might have been talking about Blessed Be God, which was in a previous live stream, and His Excellency did endorse it. There's a 1925 edition. Sophia Institute Press has a 2024 edition. I would not recommend it, or maybe it's even 2025 because it has the Bug Nini Holy Week. So the 1925 edition I've seen widely available on eBay, even for ridiculous prices, something like $20. I would buy those. But His Excellency was just generally referring to prayer books. But he identified Blessed Be God as one of the prayer books that he endorsed. So I would push you towards eBay for that. Jimmy Hunjin for £5. Thank you, Jimmy. What will be the responsibilities of the religious brothers of the Institute?
They would be according to their talents. In other words, some would do manual work, some would teach, be sacristans. It really depends on their talents, and so it could be anything. Really.
Roasting coffee beans or making liqueur, something like that.
Yes, I could think of binding books, and
His Excellency would immediately put them to work with that. He's got always
a lot. Yeah, there's a lot, but that's a hard thing to do. That's an art. There's so many things to do. Cooking.
I suppose we'd start with having the first Institute brother. That would be a start, Your Excellency.
That would be, yes.
We
this
start
is the first one
tasks.
actually to respond to what I said a few months ago in the newsletter.
So we would pray for those vocations that they can be put to all of the tasks that His Excellency alluded to. There's plenty of work to be done all the time.
Yes, and there were many orders of teaching brothers, but they also had brothers that worked in the house too. It's not confined to one thing. But we could definitely. I had teaching brothers in high school. They were very good.
Did they use the Board of Education, Your Excellency, these brothers?
Oh yes, I mean we
People
had that
might not know what I mean.
all the
But
way through. I mean, yes, that was just normal in those times. Your parents would spank you, and you would get spanked at school too, in one form or other. The nun would use the pointer to hit you on the back if you didn't do your homework or something like that, and or she'd use the ruler to smack your hand, and I mean that was just life, and nobody thought anything of it. And then all of a sudden, it's abuse.
right. It was actually referred to the Board of Education was this board, I think, with holes in it
Yes.
so it could make a swishing sound as it came towards you.
Well, I can't remember that exactly, but the it was used quite normally, and there was discipline in the classroom as a result, and we learned a lot. I learned how to write and read, which is something that people don't know how to do now because there's constant distraction in the classroom.
His Excellency, you said in a previous live stream that one should never shake hands with the bishop. Why is that?
Because if you were to greet him in that way, you should kiss his ring. In other words,
I think they're asking why is it improper to shake your hand?
because you should kiss the ring of a bishop.
So it's a more appropriate
Yes.
exchange.
Yes. In other
Okay.
words, yes.
So I think that's hopefully it answers the question. It's not a moral evil. It's just
No,
something
no.
that's
It's
proper.
not. No, I shake hands with a lot of people, but the Catholics should, if you were in a situation where it would be appropriate to shake someone's hand, then you should kiss his ring.
Okay, hopefully that answers that question. Le Cassou for $10. Thank you. Could His Excellency give his thoughts on Lacordaire? I've heard he was a gifted preacher, but also had some rather interesting confreres in his day.
Well, he was a liberal. You have to understand 19th century French Catholicism. There was Lamennais, Montalembert, and Lacordaire. They were like the trinity of liberals, liberal Catholicism, and that is that they were in favor of a free church in a free country. In other words, that something like what we have, that the church should not be established as the religion of the country. And he said, even I will die as a liberal. That's Lacordaire. He was that much. But he had the Catholic faith. Liberalism was condemned, by Gregory the 16th and Pius IX. So I don't think he ever got personally condemned. Lamennais was, but
would you stay away from his writings, Your Excellency, or his sermons? I've heard he's given some very beautiful sermons.
he gave sermons in Notre Dame, and yes, I've never read them. I can't say one way or the other.
But if you're calling him a
never
liberal, it makes me a little concerned.
Yes, I would think that maybe a priest could, because he could read it very critically, and say, "Well, this is some of his liberalism," But I wouldn't recommend it for lay people.
Okay. Someone had a follow-up on the Protestant prayer, Your Excellency. Could you basically hijack it and say, well, I'll lead the prayer, and then you say the Catholic grace before meals? Would that be an option?
Yes, what you don't want to do is pray with the Protestants. In other words, if you said your own grace, that's fine. And you could say it out loud while they're saying theirs, but I mean, you don't want to give the impression of praying with them.
Okay. So you could say it on your own out loud, but not give the impression of leading the Protestants in prayer, I think is what His Excellency is saying. Someone noted the Board of Education is synonymous with a willow branch.
Yeah, it was.
Am I, as a Catholic, allowed to spend money at a business where I am sure, totally sure, that some of the money will go towards benefiting a different religion? For example, am I allowed to eat at a restaurant chain which publicly makes donations to evangelical foundations or charities? This person is referring to Chick-fil-A, Your Excellency.
You are not obliged to look into how they spend their own money. All you're doing is getting a product. I mean, otherwise, you probably couldn't buy a car. You probably couldn't go to the supermarket. you would have to live in a cave. No, you're not obliged to do that.
So this isn't
This
considered
is their
remote.
money, and what they do with it, they do with it. You're not. If you directly gave to a non-Catholic entity, that would be wrong. But no, you're just buying something from them.
So this is not remote cooperation with a different religion or remote
No,
support.
no,
of
it's not even that. No.
Okay. His Excellency said in a Q&A potentially last year that there was a certain pope that gave us back Sundays. His Excellency was referring to the fact that many Sundays used to be easily supplanted by feast days. His Excellency mentioned there was a pope who decreed that certain feasts should be moved to the following Monday. Which pope was this? Can His Excellency talk about the rules about which feasts are moved and which feasts supplant or take the place of a Sunday?
Well, I don't think I said they're moved to the following Monday. I don't ever recall that. But the Leo the 13th loaded up the calendar with a great many saints, and then Pius X said this so obscures the temporal cycle that he wanted adjusted the calendar, and so that the Sunday bumps a normal saint, you might say. That means a typical feast of a saint. And whereas if it's a really big feast, like what we call a double of the second class or a double of the first class, then that bumps the Sunday. You see, and during the week, if the Sunday is bumped, then the priest must resume the Mass of Sunday if a ferial day occurs. See, so it's very complicated. I don't know if.
Well, we just had an example of this with the Feast of St. John, the dedication of St. John Lateran bumped a Sunday.
Yes. So that's it was just that it was to have a balance between the saints and the temporal cycle, what we call it, the green Sundays, you might say.
So I think maybe the person talking about moving to a Monday, maybe they mean just to the next available day. Like we had All Souls got moved to a Monday because it can't occur on a Sunday.
Yes, it can't occur on a Sunday. That's special though. It would be, I can't think of a single case where a Sunday would be moved to a Monday, or that a feast would be moved to a Monday.
The Sunday is just commemorated in the last
Sunday
gospel.
is commemorated, and the Mass is resumed. It's not actually it's not actually moved. It's just that the Mass is resumed during the week.
All right, I hope that answers that question. And you bring us nicely to the calendar question, Your Excellency. The new calendar is out. I'll put a link in the chat to buy it. There'll be 26 Sundays after Pentecost in the new liturgical year, Your Excellency. But I did note with a bit of dismay for First Friday people that unfortunately this next liturgical year, the first Friday of April falls on Good Friday. And the note in the calendar says, the common opinion of authors is that since there is no distribution of Holy Communion today, those wishing to complete the 9 First Fridays would be required to begin the series again in May, if today would otherwise have been one of the 9 First Fridays in the series. I feel bad for anyone whose 9th First Friday is going to be April the 3rd. And I don't mean to laugh in the sense of I've always been an advocate for the first Saturdays, Your Excellency. I feel like Our Lady really saved us. You only have 5 to do there. It's not as onerous as what is asked for the 9 First Fridays. So I think
a way to avoid it would be to die on Good Friday, because the priest can give you viaticum on Good Friday.
Oh, okay. So all you have to do is arrange for that, watchers and listeners. So again, thank you to Father Eldracker for helping to put this together for the faithful, so you can get your copy. Obviously, if you have a copy from last year, you're covered until January anyway. But if you want to buy a copy, as I said, there's a link in the chat, and it has all of the practical things that you need as usual. Your Excellency, can you give an overview on the morality of self-defense and lethal force for Catholics? How would one apply St. Thomas's principles about meeting with equal force apply to using a firearm against an attacker? Also, what are your thoughts on concealed carry in general, and in particular in churches? There have been a lot of recent shootings in churches in America, and the world has become a lot crazier recently.
This reminds me of a presidential press conference where they ask so many questions. Let's take them one at a time.
Okay, so one at a time. Can you give an overview on the morality of self-defense and lethal force for Catholics?
Yes, you have the right to defend yourself against somebody who is attacking you, and if possible, you should, out of charity, do something to stop him, if possible. In other words, to shoot him in the kneecap. You see, to stop him. But if you're not a good enough shot, you can, and they are going to do you a very serious harm, such as take your own life or take all of your goods. Then you can morally shoot him. You see, if he's just going to, take $20 from you, you can't shoot him for that. His life is more important than the $20. See, so there has to be a proportion between what he intends to do to you and the response that you have. But it's legitimate.
I'm referring. I don't remember. I shared with you that video, Your Excellency, that someone was, I think, silly enough to try to rob a convenience store in Texas, and the three people in line all pulled and shot this person. So you're saying that's a disproportionate response to someone. The person wasn't wielding a weapon. He was just trying to, I think, rob the store. Maybe he was wielding a weapon. Maybe I'm misspeaking.
I would say that was, unless he was dangerous, in other words. And, sometimes in the doubt, you might just presume that he is dangerous. But no, otherwise I would just say, no, you couldn't do that.
I mean, whether he was dangerous or not, he was certainly stupid, Your Excellency, to try to rob someone in Texas.
Yes, you don't rob somebody in Texas, no. Even the little old ladies have guns in their purses.
How would one apply St. Thomas's principles about meeting with equal force applied to using a firearm against an attacker?
Well, what I just said, in other words, that you would use minimum force in preventing someone from attacking you. That's the general principle. Is whatever, because again, his life and the salvation of his soul is more important than your goods, but not more important than your own life. You see, so it really, there's many factors here that
it's hard to make that
yes,
distinction in that situation.
Yes, yes, and there's a lot of factors that can't be defined.
What are your thoughts on concealed carry in general, and in particular in churches?
Well, I think in churches, yes, I think more and more, because there's so many crazy people and so many people that hate. I mean, the leftists hate the right so much that they just want to do violence to us, So, no, I think that's a good idea that there be armed people in the church. And there have been many cases of people preventing harm because they shot the intruder. But yeah, I mean, you have to obey the laws concerning the what is it? The carry? What is it?
Concealed carry.
Yeah, you have to obey the laws concerning that. Yeah, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with carrying a weapon.
Would it be wrong for clergy to carry a weapon?
Ordinarily, it is. You could see a reason why he should, for one reason or another, but that's ordinarily not.
If he were ministering, 3 a.m. in Detroit somewhere, I suppose.
Yeah.
He might need to protect himself.
Yeah, there could be circumstances where it's necessary.
If you're just coming into the stream now, please make sure you hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already done so. Liking during the video helps to push the live out to subscribers in the algorithm. Jason D for $10. Thank you, Jason. Does everyone have a guardian angel? And if so, when do they receive one?
Yes to the first, and I don't know to the second. I never saw that.
Because the church hasn't defined that?
That's not the object of definition, actually. The church never defined guardian angels. That's universal ordinary magisterium. So I mean, that means it's a dogma, but probably, I'm going to guess at conception. But I've never seen anything written about that.
So that's a deduction on your part based on
a guess, not even a deduction. Okay. It's a guess.
A guess. Will Matthews, $5. Thank you, Will. Does His Excellency have any memory of St. Paul the Apostle Church in New York City before Vatican II?
Yes.
This is the most liberal parish in the Archdiocese of New York, and it's run by the Paulist fathers.
Well, the Paulists were founded as liberals in the 18th and 19th century. See, that was it's the founder of the Paulists. I forget his name.
It's not Father Hecker, is it?
Yes, okay. Father Hecker. And he was very much in favor of all of the Americanist ideas. And yes, it was founded as a way of relating to modern society Yes, I'm not surprised at all that that's the most liberal place in the whole city. Yes, there was, and that caused a reaction in France. There was a book written, "Is Father Hecker a Saint?" And that caused a big reaction in Paris, because there was this idea that, see, Archbishop Ireland, who was also super liberal for his time, came over and talked about all of the virtues of the American system and all. And so that was, it stirred up a lot of controversy in France.
Let's move on to, we have some other locations. We have Riverton, New Jersey, and it's all in all caps for the geographically challenged, Your Excellency, South Jersey. East Setauket, is that now how that's
Setauket? Yes,
East
in Long Island,
Setauket.
yeah.
Belgium in Dendermonde.
Oh, yeah.
Australia.
I've been to these places.
Yes. And if you haven't already shared, Omaha, Nebraska, Dublin, Ireland. If you haven't already shared where you're watching or listening, please do so we can let His Excellency know. Fair to remember, $20. Thank you, Fair. What are His Excellency's thoughts on Messianic Judaism?
Do you mean like, I'm not sure what the Messianic, does that mean?
Maybe the Talmudic Judaism, Your Excellency?
I'm
They're
not
waiting
sure.
for the Messiah.
Well, I mean, Jews in principle are waiting for the Messiah. So, it depends on who or what they're waiting for. So I don't know how to answer that question.
All right.
It would have to be more specific about it.
Fair, if you could be more specific and put that in the chat, I will keep my eye in the chat to see if you can have a more clarified question. I'll present that to His Excellency. Andrew McFarland, $20. Thank you, Andrew. Can you give a book reference for damning details about Luther's writings?
Well, there's a famous book about Luther in English. It was translated from the German by Grisar, Grisar, and that'll tell you everything you want to know about Luther. He was a Jesuit.
And that's in English.
Yes. If you know German, there's yet another one, Denifle, which is even more revealing about Luther. But, for those who know German.
All right.
You could find that on A Books, probably. The Grisar. That was very popular.
Jimmy Hunjin for £10. Thank you, Jimmy. Would St. Peter's Basilica need to be consecrated again after the gross acts of sacrilege that have occurred there? There would be a need to remove the stench of Vatican II.
Well, technically speaking, only the shedding of violent blood, or the violent shedding of blood, is one of the things that desecrates a cathedral or a church. The improper use doesn't in itself. I mean, St. Peter's was improperly used many times. Yeah, the old St. Peter's during the 1520s was used as a stable for horses by the invading German Protestants. And then again, it was used for the same thing when the Garibaldi Freemasons invaded Rome in 1870. So it's been desecrated in that sense before, but it was never reconsecrated. Those things don't take away the consecration.
The person who asked about Cardinal Bea has said that it's not in his Wikipedia entry. So I think the question is, are we certain that he was definitely a Jew?
It's common knowledge that he was a convert from Judaism. I mean, that's all I could say.
I thought so too, Your Excellency, but we could be mistaken. It's possible.
Yeah.
Jimmy Hunjin for £5 inserts that Messianic Jews are Jews who accept Jesus as the Messiah but observe the old law.
Well, they're Judaizers. That was condemned by St. Paul to the Galatians. Yeah.
Way back.
Yes. So, I mean, I think that says it all.
All right. If a person, also from Jimmy for £10, thank you, Jimmy. If a person was declared a heretic posthumously, would their body need to be removed from consecrated ground? I ask with a view to a future restoration.
People don't get declared heretics after they die. Their works might be declared heretical, but there is no judgment of the person after he dies.
All right. We have people from Highland, Michigan,
I've been there.
Seattle,
I've been there.
Sudbury, Ontario, Binghamton, New York, Corpus Christi, Texas. Thank you for sharing. We're probably about 15 minutes away from the end of our stream. So if you do have questions for His Excellency, right now would be a good time to get them in because we'll be wrapping up soon. And His Excellency has had a busy week here, even though he didn't think he was going to have a busy week because he was supposed to be in Europe.
Italy.
In
I was
Europe
supposed
this
to be in
week.
Italy, but I came down with some sort of sinus infection, and I thought, no. I did that once. I flew with a sinus infection, and I thought when I was descending, when the descent, when the pressure gets greater and greater, I thought my head was going to explode.
Felt like the descent into hell, possibly.
And that was more than 50 years ago. It was when I was a seminarian.
And you still remember?
Yes.
It must
So
have
I
been
said,
terrible.
No.
So, not canceled, but postponed, Your
Yes,
Excellency.
I need to go over there for various reasons.
All right. So continue to pray for His Excellency's health, that he won't have that infection the next time that he hopes to go to Europe. Would one avoid a spiritual communion if one is in a state of mortal sin?
No, that's the very time to use it. No, no, not at all.
I suppose it might be useful to Your Excellency to talk about a soul in mortal sin, what that spiritual life looks like, how one is trying to move towards
Well,
grace.
you can free yourself from mortal sin before confession if you make an act of perfect contrition. Not a perfect act of contrition, but an act of perfect contrition, which is to be sorry for your sins because they have offended the goodness of God, not because you fear hell or for some other reason. See, so that remits already the sin, because mortal sin and sanctifying grace, rather the contrition, perfect contrition, cannot coexist in the same soul. But you must intend to confess at your first opportunity. But you cannot receive Holy Communion simply with that. You must confess before receiving Holy Communion. But you could say the spiritual communion because you could be what we call morally certain that you have repented of the sin and you are in the state of sanctifying grace. But if you're in the state of mortal sin, you pray that God give you the grace of contrition.
I would say, Your Excellency, would that not be a positive sign that you had a desire to make a spiritual communion?
Yes, I mean
when you
that's
were
a very positive sign of an act of contrition, a true act of contrition.
Now, Your Excellency, you parse the difference between act of perfect contrition versus a perfect act of contrition. Can you explain?
Well, a perfect act of contrition could be a perfect act of imperfect contrition. It's, in other words, it's not the act; it's the object.
All
See, that's
okay. Hope that helps answer those questions. And as I said, for those who had not seen it already, the new 2026 calendar is available. There's a link for it in the chat if you'd like to go and buy it. But those of you who already have the 2025 calendar, you are covered until January. 8 Australian dollars from Heart for Heaven. Thank you, Heart. Praying for your health, Your Excellency. Could you give some spiritual advice to a lowly housewife struggling with procrastination?
it's a form of laziness. Yes, you need meditation would be great for that, to meditate on the will of God. What is the will of God for me right now? And that always is duties of state and life. So, and that doesn't mean that you don't take breaks or that you don't have recreation. You know, it's not constant work. But even your recreations or your breaks have to be ordered according to prudence. In other words, you might sit down and have coffee or something for 15 minutes and then go back to your work. But it's always, what is the will of God for me right now? And so almost always the answer will be duties of state and life. And that's how St. Francis de Sales says that's the best way in which to sanctify your soul, is to be faithful to your duties of state and life.
We've got about 5 minutes left, so if you have a super chat that you want to put in, please do that now, and we're going to close off super chats in the next minute. So if you'd like to put that in, this looks to be from potentially not just a new watcher or listener, Your Excellency, but someone who's not a traditional Catholic because of how the question is posed. So I think it will be helpful. Your Excellency, what is your view of the Novus Ordo? I know you dislike it, but why exactly?
Well, in general, it's a Protestantized liturgy. The purpose of the ceremonies that surround the essence of the Mass or any sacrament is to express the theology or the doctrine concerning that. You see, so a Catholic liturgy is one that expresses the doctrine of what's there. In other words, transubstantiation, the holy sacrifice of the Mass, many other aspects of Catholic doctrine that are contained in the Mass. See, so that's a Catholic liturgy. A non-Catholic liturgy would be one in which the same that the doctrine of the Mass is not portrayed, but in fact some errors or heresies are portrayed. You see, that would be a non-Catholic rite. See, even if, yes, they had the words of Christ at the consecration, nonetheless, what we call the ceremonies would not be suitable. That would constitute a non-Catholic rite. So, for example, the Protestants kept their communion services, etc., but and you have the Book of Common Prayer, but it does not express the Catholic notion of the Holy Eucharist. See. So that's what it is in a nutshell, is that it was concocted with the help of 6 Protestant ministers. The whole idea of Vatican II was ecumenism, and the first thing that they worked on was the liturgy, because the liturgy is your weekly school of Catholicism. And if Vatican II had such success, it's because every single week there was a dose of ecumenism. All of that was done for the sake of ecumenism, that is, a Mass that would please Protestants.
Well, Your Excellency, I asked for the last of the super chats, and we have a bunch of people who got in before the deadline. So it is officially closed now. Thank you for your generosity. If you'd like to remember, it's still November, so we have Leo Watch live coming up if you have Leo specific questions, and then we'll have the regular Q&A for His Excellency on the Roman Catholic Media channel. So if you'd like to, a lot of people, so if you saw some of the questions I was reading, it was because people sent in donations and then used the contact us form because they couldn't make it to the live. So that's another option for you. If you can't make it to these live, you can send a donation ahead of time and then send in your questions separately, and we can read them as we did here. From Matthew Joseph, $5. Thank you, Matthew. Your Excellency, suppose a priest imposes a situation onto you that you cannot perfectly fulfill as a condition for absolution. Is the confession invalid?
In other words, he gives you a penance that you cannot fulfill,
or potentially says you now have to stay away from this person, or...
Well, that's too general a question for me to answer. I mean,
I sense that you were going to say that.
Yes, it's one thing. I mean, you have to avoid the near occasions of sin. For example, if 2 young people are fornicating, the priest will say you have to stop, or else you have to separate. You see, and that is, every priest would have to say that. But if somebody said, "I want you to say 1,000 rosaries," because you missed your morning prayers or something, you see, you could go to another priest and say, "This priest gave me 1,000 rosaries." I'm using an absurd example, but in other words, if the penance is greater than the sin, you could confess to another priest and have him commute it.
But in that example you gave, Your Excellency, of the 2 young people fornicating, does that make the confession invalid if you don't follow the priest's condition?
It could, in this sense, if you're not truly sorry, and the fact that you would not give up the occasion of sin would show that you're not sorry for it, because the sorrow involves the avoidance of the occasions of sin, a resolve to do that.
Okay. Well, Matthew, I hope that His Excellency gave a very general answer to that question. If there's a specific question you have, obviously a personal one, that will be forwarded to a priest if you use the contact us form, and it can be answered personally to your situation. Jimmy Hunjin for £5. If the Institute will ever produce a calendar for England, Scotland, and Wales, I'm sure we'd have willing buyers here at the said St. Edmund Mission. Well, it takes a lot of research to put together a calendar, Your Excellency. You've got to get into those dusty tomes at the libraries and make sure. So,
All of the special feasts in Europe. I mean, France is a nightmare
Right.
for special feasts.
when you've got
And-
three nations he's referring to there, England, Scotland, and
Oh,
Wales, I can't
yes,
imagine.
Yes. No, it's, I could just imagine all the medieval saints and,
It's so old. Those countries are so old.
yes, it would be very difficult. It would take a lot of time to figure out, the classification of the saints and what other feasts they bump. See, St. Thomas More, for example, is celebrated in England as a special day. Here it isn't. you
Right.
see.
Our Lady of Guadalupe is a double of the first class. It's a holy day of obligation in Mexico, Your Excellency, and then has an octave as well in Mexico. So
Yes.
it's different.
And in certain dioceses, it is celebrated in this country.
So, Jimmy, it's not a question of producing the calendar, it's a question of doing the research. And Father Gilchrist has his hands pretty full, I'm sure you know. So,
Well, we'll just tell Father Eldrocker to do it.
Father Eldracker will not be happy to hear that. He's got
Right.
his hands full with Australia. But
Right.
it's more about the research, Jimmy, than anything. The putting together the printing is not actually so hard. Father Eldracker's done a wonderful job with that as well. People Tropic, $10. Thank you, people. When I guess the question is trying to be formulated. When will the conversion of the Jews happen? Before the Antichrist?
That's disputed. Cardinal Bio says after the Antichrist.
Okay. Why is it disputed, Your Excellency?
It's disputed because there's no
Specified?
Nothing is specified in sacred scripture.
Do you have an opinion?
I like Cardinal Bio's explanation. All I can say, I like it. He says that the seven angels of the apocalypse are 7 ages of the church, and he does a whole explanation
yes.
of that. And it sounds very plausible. And he was writing maybe the beginning of this 20th century and saying during this period there's going to be a big apostasy from the faith, and that there will be few who will resist this, who will retain the faith. And that's chilling that he, and he cites the sacred scripture for it. And then he says that this age will produce the Antichrist, and then at the end of this age, the Jews will convert, and that will usher in an era of the church that will be so great that it will outshine everything in its history.
Well, you've alluded to that before.
I always say, if the Jews convert, our problems are over. They will buy St. Peter's Basilica. They will buy the whole Vatican, maybe Rome itself, and everything will be fine.
Oh, I was going to say, I hope I'm not here to see it, but you're saying it.
No, I think it'll be the best thing that could ever happen to us is the conversion of the Jews. They are vivacious and tenacious, and they will get it done.
Sede Trad for $5. Thank you, Sede. Is it acceptable for women and girls to play sports?
Well, that's a very general question again. They could, I don't think it's good for them to play sports that are typically male, obviously, things that are a little rough and tough. I don't think they should play football, for example. But, say things that are volleyball or something, but they should never do that with men. You see, that should, even years ago they played basketball. It's just that it shouldn't be a rough and tough. They shouldn't play rugby. It's against their feminine nature. But so it depends on what sport you're talking about.
Okay. We bear the cross 5 pounds. One world religion that the Masons plan for. Could it be brought through the Catholic Church, given the works of the Pope with Anglicans and Orthodox?
Oh, I think without a doubt. I think that's the whole idea.
Well, when you say the Catholic Church, you're actually not the true Catholic Church.
Yeah, no, well, in other words, the Novus Ordo. I mean, that's the whole plan of the Novus Ordo. I don't know if you saw what the delegate to the Brazil conference said.
Mm-mm.
You know how they talked about climate and all of this, and how we're getting ready for the restructuring of the economy in 2030, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it sounded like something you'd read in a science fiction book. I'd like to get that. That would be a good text to get. I just saw it today, and all of the one world agenda was in it.
The person who'd asked you previously about the Novus Ordo, Your Excellency, he says, thank you for the response. I still attend a Novus Ordo parish. I discovered Roman Catholic media only a month ago.
Well, I would urge you to stop going to the Novus Ordo parish as much as I possibly can.
And I would probably also encourage you to check out Leo Watch on the Roman Catholic Media channel. Someone had written to us, Your Excellency, and said it only took me 2 Leo watches to become a set of a contest. So, Seth, if you watch a couple Leo Watch episodes, you may get into that same situation. Some lightning rounds here, Your Excellency. What Bible translation do you recommend? You've answered this numerous
Douay
times.
Rheims, it's the only one.
What about the Facts About Luther by Monsignor Patrick O'Hare? Do you know?
I
This
never
text?
read that. Probably it's a summary of Grisar. Grisar is a fairly long book, but I never read it. So, and I think I heard that, yes, that it's not documented. When they don't document quotes, that's a bad sign. In other words, it means that it's not a serious work. I heard of that about that book, that is not documentation.
We have a Robert Mayer from Long Island. Do you
Oh,
recognize-
yes, I know him. He was a seminarian years ago. Yeah.
Does His Excellency know of Father Chad Ripperger, and does he have an opinion about him?
I've seen his name. I think he makes some comments on the internet. That's about all I know about him, though.
For those who want to move to Brooksville, is there a welcoming committee or some kind of, I suppose the
Is
answer
that
there.
the part of the question?
Yeah, I think they wanted to know, is there some sort of relocation committee or some?
I don't know, because we're 1,000 miles away from that place. But if someone wanted to move there, they could contact me, and I would make sure that they got all the information. We have parishioners who are real estate agents, and there would be a lot of help in that. Yes.
But encourage people to ask the Queen of All Saints Chapel.
Yeah, they can send me an email, or yes, in other words, there's some way to contact me, and I would put them in contact with the right people.
So you can use the contact us form and use His Excellency as your agent to help
Yes,
you with this.
I'm a really, yes.
He knows a couple people in Brooksville that he could potentially
Yes,
connect you
yes.
with. Andrew McFarland for $5. Your Excellency, could you spell Grisar, the author?
Grisar.
Okay, well,
That was originally in German.
he guessed correctly. Andrew, you guessed correctly. Very nice. What else do we have? Rostrevor, Ireland. That's where Roisin is watching from. Ocala, Florida.
Been there.
Is it Goshen, New York, Your Excellency, or Goshen?
Goshen.
Goshen. Someone's noting that Cardinal Bea was baptized as a baby and he is not Jewish.
Well, you could be Jewish and baptized.
Right.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by Jewish, but I will look it up.
Okay.
But it's
To be clarified on a future stream. Oklahoma City. Are you aware of Father Belmont's studies on episcopal consecrations without apostolic mandate?
vaguely.
Or do you know what the vaguely refers to, Your Excellency?
Well, I think he's against it.
I can't imagine Father
Yes.
Belmont would be against it.
Yeah, he's against it, but I don't take that seriously.
He is he not the perpetrator of the Bishop in the Woods thesis, Your Excellency?
I don't know, because I don't read anything that he says. I just don't take him seriously.
All right. Your Excellency, can this is from Jimmy Hunjin, 10 pounds. I missed earlier. Thank you, Jimmy. Your Excellency, can a layperson recite the little hours of the Blessed Virgin Mary at different times during the day so one does not need to get up at 2 a.m. for matins?
Yes.
Or lauds, rather?
Yes, you can do that anytime during the day. Yes.
All right. As usual, if you are watching this later on, remember that the comments for live streams are not monitored by the clerics. So if you have follow-up questions for the clergy or more specific questions, the best thing to do is to use the Contact Us form, not comment there. The clergy do not monitor the comments of the live videos. So please use that another way. As we noted already, it's the middle of November. So in the next coming weeks, you'll see live streams for Leo Watch, which it just keeps going, Your Excellency. It's hard to keep
We
up.
can't keep up.
Can't keep up, but we may have some ice cubes here in honor of that Leo Watch. And then we'll have the regular live stream for the Roman Catholic Media channel. So that has its own separate Q&A every month. And if there was a question that was, I'm double checking to make sure, but if there was a live super chat that was missed, please let me know using the Contact Us form. I'll make sure that it's asked on the next one. Thank you, as always, Your Excellency, for taking the time to answer. This is a questions for the rector on the seminary channel, so it might be helpful to note that we're at the very tail end of exams for the first trimester. How do you think everything's going?
Well, I asked a few of them how they did, and they were confident. Nobody said I'm ready to jump out a window or anything like that. No, I think I noticed that in their study days they were very, very active studying for the exam. So I was edified by that.
The last super chat, Your Excellency, from Jimmy. I have the 1949 calendar for all the dioceses of England, Scotland, and Wales.
Well, that would help. Yes, that would show all of the feasts, unless there was some added during the 50s. That's possible, but that would not be too hard because we could find that out. We'll give it to Father Eldracker.
Jimmy, you know how to get a hold of us, so if you want to send that along, I don't know that Father Eldrack will be very grateful for your diligence.
He'll do it. He'll do it.
But Your Excellency, as always, thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you.